Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We are keeping calm. We are staying local, and we are getting out into the community and talking to all sorts of folks here as sports dies down. I mean, almost everybody I've had on this week on Baltimore Positive or NST, there's a sports bent because sports is what I've done forever. This guy, you know him because you've probably seen his ads during sports games, or certainly old Orioles fans remember his dad. He is the president of Advance Business Systems. They always had the clever commercials back in the day. It was always my goal to be in an Advance commercial and be a sidekick for you, Jeffrey Elkin. How are you? I know these are tough times, I think, for any business owner, and I think this is an incredible opportunity for me to take a guy like you and invite you on. By the way, we only have 559 mutual connections on LinkedIn. That's all. You know, we're all in this together, and I think that's what I've learned, right?
Well, good morning, Nestor. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. And obviously, these are unprecedented times. And like everybody else, we are figuring out how to navigate through them because there will be, it is a moment in time. There will be something on the other end. And we plan to be here and be stronger than ever when all is said and done.
Well, you and your dad have been at this a long time. How many employees do you have?
We have about 170.
That's a lot of people. That's a lot of families. There's a lot of wives. There's a lot of children. That's probably a lot of parents who had children that had lacrosse taken away or baseball taken away or whatever the sport would be taken away. This has been as much a mental management and a social experiment as it's been just we can all get sick and die. The psychological part of shutting every single thing down for however long this is, and for what we do with our time while this is shut down, what we're telling our children, how we're hanging into this with relationships and whomever we live with. We're getting to know the people we live with real well, aren't we?
Well, you're right. There's a lot of jokes floating around, but you find out how well you like your family. I'm very fortunate that I have an amazing wife and 3 grown kids who are normally out of the house who are sheltering in with us. And, some of the silver linings that come along with this are the opportunity to reconnect with family. And, but you're right. It's a crazy time. We have 170 employees, and a lot of them are dealing with their spouses who are now suddenly finding themselves out of work. And so while all of our people are still employed, there's a lot of fear and uncertainty out there for sure.
Tell me about your business. And, people know Advance and they say copiers. It was always copiers, right? And I know that's not where we are in 2020. For folks like you and anyone who's second, third generation to navigate business change, especially in your business. I'm assuming you go back to typewriters and pencils and like that. I don't know how far back your company goes, but evolution and evolving through all of this. And now we're evolving to the point where masks, gloves, learning about bacteria, learning about viruses, learning about all of this. There's always an educational part of this, I think, that goes along. I think of Advance. I think of your funny ads from 20 years ago. I really do.
Well, thank you. So we go back to 1964. My parents both, Alan and Lois Elkin, started the company. At the time, we sold things that were crucial to businesses, such as typewriter ribbons and carbon paper and things that probably most of your listeners don't even know what they did, and consistently evolved through the years. And you're absolutely right. For many years and to this day, our business was primarily based on copiers and printers and anything that moved documents through organizations. And several years ago, we made the shift as well to go into what we call managed IT services, where we literally become the IT arm of our customers. And I got to tell you, that's the part of our business that right now, while the document side of our business has seen a huge drop in the last week or so, the IT business is still very busy because, everybody is figuring out how do we go remote? How do we go from on-premises to remote in record speed and keep our businesses alive through this? So our IT folks have been working literally round the clock to help our customers with that transition.
I think for having anyone that runs a business, certainly 170 employees, and folks know who you are, when this happens 2 weeks ago, let's say, give or take, and the kids have to move in, and seasons are changing, and employees are freaking out. Give me a little snapshot of crisis management as you see it, and maybe some things you've learned in the last. I think we've all learned something in the last 2 weeks because I don't think any of us had a playbook for this one, right?
Yeah, you're right. And so, when I think back just a month ago, the biggest problem every business was facing was how do we find people? Full employment, nobody can find employees, and here we are a month later, and, we have millions of people being unemployed by the day. And so about 2 weeks ago, it became really clear that things were going to change very rapidly, and the situation was pretty dire. And as a business owner, you can wallow in that emotion for about 2 seconds, and then you better snap out of it and start with the plan to what are we going to do about it. And so 2 weeks ago, I called my leadership team in one morning at 8 o'clock and sat them down and said, look, this is going to get really bad. We need to plan immediately. First of all, we've got to keep all of our people safe. And then secondly, we need to have business continuity here. And this is going to be like every other business out there. This is going to be a game of cash management. We got to make sure that we have enough cash to manage through this crisis, and I need a plan. And by noon that day, we had a plan to, number one, separate our people and get them remote so that nobody was at risk of either, we had social distancing in place as well as we had redundancy so that we could continue to service our customers. And I got to tell you, in 48 hours later, our business was completely transformed. And we were not a particularly remote business. And now, as I sit here in our Cockeysville headquarters, I'm one of about 10 people in our building right now, and all of our other employees are working remotely.
Well, I think we all find what we're made of, right? I mean, this is a dig deep for everybody, and bad things are still going to happen. And I don't think I'm being doomsday by saying that. And I think we've seen what's happened in China. I have two dear friends that live in northern Italy, and I follow them on a daily basis on Facebook. They're a part of my life. One of them is a friend of mine who left Pikesville 30 years ago, who has been sheltered up with her children and wearing masks to go get groceries, and all of that's coming here. And I think we're starting to realize that, right? Like I think on a daily basis of being locked at home, we realize that Easter's probably not like realistic, that baseball starting on Memorial Day is not realistic, that kids going back to school, as much as Governor Hogan wants that to happen, and I want that to happen, and teachers want that to happen, the whole notion of gathering people for a baseball game or for a Pearl Jam concert, that was the first thing I was upset about 2 weeks ago, Jeff,
Funny how things change.
Yeah, and expectations change. And now I have toilet paper on the set just to let everybody know I'm okay for a little while. So when I tell people, you don't see the toilet paper on the set, send recon. But it's been a fascinating social experiment to see, all right, we're all still here now, 10 days later. Now what are we going to do? And for the people that are unemployed, for people, for the government and for the hospitals and for the overwhelm, I think there's a keep calm and a stay local thing here that I have up on my Chiron. The calm part of this. You have 170 employees. I'm sure not all of them were calm, right? Like part of this is just being a good friend to people at this point and finding some fellowship between people to say, we got through that, we'll get through this too, right?
Well, yeah, I think that, first of all, let's go back to toilet paper. My house, we've got a 2 square a day ration for all of our family members. So there's some fights going on about that. But no, in all seriousness, I think as leaders, it's our job to project calm and confidence, but also be realistic. Hope is not a strategy. And so if we're relying on hope to get us through this, then likely we're in trouble.
That's our last thing we have, right? Literally.
Yeah. So I tell our people, let's hope for the best, but we're going to plan for the worst and base all of our plans around that. But we have to project strength. Look, we're a company that's been in business for nearly 56 years. We've never seen anything quite like this, but we've been through a lot, and we'll make it through this as well. And that's the message I keep telling our people is we will be here. We're going to make it through this, but we have to seize the opportunities that come through this. And clearly, most of our people have a lot of idle time on their hands right now. We've made a decision. Our value system and our culture is that we are going to keep our people on and continue to pay them as long as we possibly can because they're family. It's the right thing to do. And right now we can do that. But they need to be, improving their skills, gaining education because the world's going to be forever changed when we come out of this thing. And so if we go back to business as usual when everything's said and done, then we've missed an opportunity to become a better organization and better people along the way.
Evolution, that's what it's all about. Advance, by the way, I'm up on your page. AdvanceStuff.com is the way to find Jeff Elkin. He's the president of Advance, and you hear their ads and see them around town. And the slogan is, we live and breathe this stuff. And I'm thinking, with a mask. You have to put that on. So you can, your dad would laugh at that one, I'm sure.
we live and breathe this stuff from at least 6 feet away from
From
one
6
another.
feet
How
away,
about that?
6.5 feet away at this point. For you with the business and all the things you just said about evolving and how next March is going to look different than this March no matter what, and how this is going to change things. I think we're all trying to look over the hill and around the corner and around the bend and through the forest and see a Ravens game in September and Lamar Jackson and a concert at Merriweather sometime this summer and a chance to hug somebody that you haven't lived with for the last couple of weeks, right? Like all of that stuff that we want to do that we can see to the other side. Do you have anything predictive in any of this that you're telling your friends and family or saying, look out for this, or sort of, I don't know, sort of beware or safety, all not beyond, above and beyond what you're even seeing on television, what you're telling your friends and family?
I try to think about what are the ramifications long term of this. And before this all happened, a lot of people were lamenting the fact that we were all connected to our devices, and the way we were communicating was through text. And, as humans, we are social creatures. And I think one of the silver linings, this is just a gut of mine, I have no indication or my crystal ball is on the fritz, so it's just my best guess. But I think that the opportunity to reconnect to people, to hug somebody, to look face to face to them, to shake a hand, to share a sports event together. Those are things that it's going to be many years before we take that for granted again. And I believe that through this all, that we will all treasure those connections and hopefully some of the things that were not so positive that were going on are going to turn around and be more precious than ever before.
Yeah, I'm putting a status up right now. Who's the first person you're going to want to hug when this thing's over with? That you can't right now, right? And I think we've all been forced to think about that and think about how important was that Terps game at Madison Square Garden this weekend? How important was that Pearl Jam concert Saturday? And, and my wife and I we're built for this, her two cancer battles, the masks, the gloves, the Purell. It's also horrifically familiar to us. Yeah. And I had to put my head back because it was 6 weeks ago last week that my wife was diagnosed for the first time. And that day shook my world like no other day, right? I mean, it's just you have to completely rethink your universe when you think your spouse might die, and how are we going to manage this? How are we going to keep her alive? You're thinking all those thoughts. But then I thought back to the day before that and what I knew about germs and masks and gloves and breathing on each other. And I was never a big handshaker. I was more of a hugger than a handshaker. I always thought like hands and touching faces, that's how you get colds in the winter. And I've always been on the radio every day and independently employed. So like sickness was not a great thing for me. So I didn't like being sick. So I was always a fist bumper. If anybody knows me the last 15 years, I'm more of a fist bumper. But that changed everything about space for me. And sadly, and I've had to think about this in the last couple of weeks, I don't hug people as much. I don't get up on people as much since my wife's illness because I am afraid of your kids and your grandkids and where you've been and your office manager and maybe what you would give to me that I would give to my wife, because my wife does have, she has an immune compromised body as well as a diabetes she's had since she's 19. So I can't get her sick, and I've lived my whole life that way. So I never touch doorknobs, Jeff. I take my shirt and when I walk out of a restaurant, I grab my shirt. I grab a paper towel when I grab doors, when I'm going out of bathrooms, airports. My wife brings a whole litany of bacteria killers when she sits on planes to wipe down literally all the trays, the underneath, everything around her. We've lived our lives that way for 6 years. So maybe it's not going to be that big of an adjustment for us in that way. But I think back to 6 years ago last week, and I'm like, that was a whole new world for me, right? And everyone's going to have to live their life like a cancer patient moving forward for the foreseeable future, right?
Yeah, I think we're breeding a whole generation of germaphobes for sure. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but it's certainly a real thing. And just going back to your last question, I was thinking about that. And how great is it going to be to go and sit down for that first meal at a restaurant when all this is said and done? And just, something that maybe you took for granted on a Saturday night going out to dinner. I certainly, my wife and I had a tradition where on Saturday nights we go out to dinner and always loved it. But boy, that next one is going to be more precious than ever. And I don't think I'll ever take that for granted again.
Jeff Elkin is here. He is Advance. They live and breathe this stuff from 6 feet away with a mask. They have a whole COVID-19 update up at advancestuff.com. Tell everybody from a business standpoint, at this point, things maybe other people should be thinking about when you're sitting down with folks about how you can be helpful in regard to documents. Hey, I think we're all getting wills together. We're all getting insurance together. We're all getting thoughts together, not just morbidly, but just like we have time on our hands right now. And this is when who's my lawyer? Who's my financial advisor? Who's my guy that manages my documents? You know, all of that stuff becomes a little bit more drawn in, especially when you have weekends free. And to your point, we can't go sit around a fire pit and have a quarantini this weekend, right?
Yeah. Well, you know, I think that most businesses that have been around for a while, you know, they talk about having a crisis plan. And, you know, we had a crisis plan, but the reality is it was sitting in a computer file somewhere that, frankly, had a crisis arisen. I'm not sure that everybody would have known their part and what to do.
I hope you tagged a crisis on it, so when you did the search through all the documents, at least it popped up, you know?
Yeah. So, but I will tell you, you know, coming out of this thing, I think that every business from this point forward, certainly for the foreseeable future, is going to know exactly what their crisis plan is and, you know, really spend a lot more time about, you know, anticipating what are some of the things that can happen and what do we do when it happens, because boy, this came on fast and furious. And, you know, as much as we saw it evolving in China, I got to tell you, I mean, we were worrying about coronavirus back in January, but our worries were our supply chain. Where were we going to be able to access product? Never in a million years do we anticipate just, you know, 6 weeks later, every school would be closed.
Isn't that fascinating? Like, we're all smart people. We thought it was an over there thing, right? In a global world where we say we're all in it together and all that, that's over there. That's something that we see on television. You know, Asian people run around with masks and white suits and carrying bodies out. You know, they're just scaring each other. That's not going to come here. I mean, literally, I think there's a large part of the culture that just thought, it's March Madness. You know, we got opening day this week. You know, like, it's lacrosse season. What do you mean we're going to shut down lacrosse? Like, that it wasn't possible, right? Like, their mind wasn't open to the possibility, even you and I, that it was coming here. If it was, we would have owned the stock market, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, really. If we could go back in time and know what we know now, I think all of us could have made some really good decisions along the way. But the plain fact is this caught everybody by surprise. And it's just unbelievable how quickly things evolved. You know, just 2 weeks ago, we were elbow bumping everybody, and it seemed like the right thing to do. And then we were talking about playing games in empty stadiums, and that seemed like the right thing to do. And here we are. And, you know, virtually, I think I read a third of the world's population is quarantined right now. It's unbelievable.
Jeff Elkin is here, and I know you find it unbelievable as an audience that Jeff Elkin and Nestor could get together here and talk about Advance and never mention Ravens, Orioles, sport. It is amazing, right, how quickly, and I'm wearing my We Never Stop Talking Baltimore Sports here, and we're keeping calm and staying local, but that's gone, right? Like, it's only been 10 days, 12 days, whatever it's been for, you know, basketball to be gone, the Terps to be gone, and opening day to be gone. Now we're just sort of like, did DaCosta do something today? You know, did we make a trade? And can we just draft on television in a couple of weeks? The NFL is the one thing of all of this that sort of has kind of operated a little bit, right? I mean, it's strange how that works that supermarkets are making a lot of money, probably not in a way that they want to at this point, but it is amazing how it affects some businesses. It's completely shuttered so many businesses. Meanwhile, DaCosta's like signing football players and making deals with Jimmy Smith, right?
Well, I have to tell you, first of all, as you may know, the Ravens, we've been partners of the Ravens for nearly 20 years, and so not only as a fan are they near and dear to my heart, but as an organization, I just think they're
as people.
There's nothing better. But boy, how great has it been? I know that they got a lot of flack for, you know, keeping operations going, but just the trickle of news and watching the trades and seeing the developments, it just, you know, it fulfills a need. There's nothing else out there, and to at least,
and they're not hurting anybody. Nobody's getting. It's not groups of 10, right?
Correct. That is correct, and it's awfully good to have something happening. And I don't know if you saw it. I did catch the Super Bowl though the other night. They replayed the Ravens-Giants game, and that was awesome to watch. And by the way, spoiler alert, we won
again.
And and that was a lot of fun to see that though.
Jeff Elkin is here. He is with Advance. They live and breathe this stuff. You can find him at advancestuff.com. And I really appreciate you coming on. I mean, we're We're going to love being at a football game whenever we can, and I know there's grave concerns about everything and everybody, and I've had one family member with COVID out in Chicago, and she just got out of ICU, my wife's cousin, and my dear friend Bill Yerman's daughter last week. She wrote about her experience, and I've shared that, and we're glad that she's doing better, and I hope that everybody stays safe. Jeff, this is the point in the program where every 20 minutes we have to say wash your hands, so I'm going to remind you, wash your hands, take care of your family, take care of everything in advance. We'll get through this, and someday you and I will be back out having a coffee and arguing about whether Lamar Jackson's going to win 14 or 15 games this year, right?
You bet. And, I look forward, and just to everybody, not only to the people that are, stay healthy, but just my heart goes out to, there are so many people right now that their worlds are upside down. And, just as I said, hope is not a strategy, but I certainly hope and pray that all these people, that everybody comes through this thing, and that, we come through this stronger, and that this is shorter in duration and less in severity than some of those forecasts are pointing to.
Jeff, really appreciate all you've done in the community. It's always great seeing you around Purple events and bumping into you around town and various stuff. We'll calm down. It's a little timeout for everybody, a little pondering and a little security for everybody. But we'll get back after this. Thanks again for spending some time. Take care of your family up there, and we'll get through this thing together, all right?
You bet. Thanks for the opportunity. Take care.
Jeff Elkin joining us here from Advance. He lives and breathes this stuff just like his dad did. I wonder if the old ads are up. I didn't even ask him that, but I gotta go Google and see if some of the old ads are up on YouTube or whatnot. They should have a backside maybe on the website too. I'll talk to him about that so we can laugh a little at the old Jeff and Alan Elkin ads from the 1980s and 90s. You can find me out on the BuyAToyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day. Baltimore Positive's got everything. We are preaching a mantra here of staying local, keeping calm. It's all going to get back to order, but we have to take care of each other and stay safe. Wear your gloves. Don't breathe anything you shouldn't. Stay 6 feet away. Do something productive. Get to know your children. Play with your dog or cat a little bit more. My cat and I have been doing yoga. It's awesome. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Baltimore Positive. Stay with us. We'll get through this together.